Hey. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We are in the cockpit. We are here ready to see what we're about to be told about here, with a lot of questions being asked towards Motorsport games. They are doing this NASCAR 21 Ignition Q&A, and I think I'm hopeful we're about to get a lot of questions answered that we desperately need answered. So I figured, you know what, I'd actually record a bit of a reaction and a kind of a deep dive into what they're about to tell us here. It's supposed to start in like a minute. It's a premiere, so we'll watch it, then we'll probably run it back and go through everything once again. I don't know how long it's going to be or what, but let's find out.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dimitri Kosko. I'm the CEO of Motorsport Games.
Hello.
We recognize that our launch of NASCAR 21 Ignition didn't meet some of your expectations.
Some?
And as you guessed, it didn't meet some of ours either. We set out to create really great NASCAR gaming experiences, and we knew that delivering you another NASCAR Heat sequel just wouldn't do the justice. So we set on a
He's got a
really
point there.
tough journey to build it all from scratch, packing it with the latest graphics, the latest physics, AI, etc., to try to really bring you, the community, the best possible experience that we could do. And just like many other innovations in the marketplace, when they're launched, they don't always go as smooth. And that's kind of what we experience. However, we still are really, really committed to working on creating the best possible experience, the most authentic and joyful NASCAR gaming experience. And one of those things that we believe to show you our commitment is that we want to get even better at being more transparent and more authentic on our intentions.
That is much
So we
needed.
launched this town hall concept where we're giving you the opportunity to ask us anything and allow us to showcase on how transparent we are, and we'll respond to those questions. Your feedback is really, really valuable to us. It allows us to not only get better today, but also shape the products of our future. And we really, really appreciate you taking the time and asking us questions and sending us feedback and telling us what you really enjoy and some of those things that don't bring you the experiences that you would like. So I could continue on saying on how committed we are and how much we're pushing this franchise forward, but let our actions speak louder than words. But in the meantime, let me take you on an inside look of the NASCAR 21 Ignition and answer some of those questions.
I wonder if my question got
Thank you.
answered. Let's find out. I did ask a question, so let's see. Will you add rear view and or side view mirrors to the game?
Yeah, so
Ooh.
lots of people have been asking about the rear view mirrors. So we had originally planned NASCAR 21 to be a next gen only release, but as we were developing the game, we saw that there weren't enough of the next gen consoles being sold in, and we recognized that the majority of our community were going to be remaining on the previous generation of consoles. So we took the quite difficult decision to actually, scale the game back to run on these earlier generation machines, and that's why we had to make this compromise. So you'll see that players on PC do have the rear view mirror, and I'm hopeful that with our next gen upgrade that's coming later this year, we may
Only
be
in
able
car
to
for the rear view mirror, by the
reintroduce
way.
mirrors for console players.
That is
But
not a
if
good
you're running on the low
way
end
to say that.
PS4s and the base level Xboxes, you're still not going to have a mirror in NASCAR 21.
Will you add field gauge or tire indicators in future games or 21 Ignition?
Yeah, we've had a few questions about this, and the approach we wanted to take was one of authenticity. I feel that so many games out there today are essentially play by numbers. You see all the information delivered to you in the HUD, and you're able to react to it in a way that's not that authentic to how the drivers get to drive these cars in the real world. In the real world, there's no tire wear indicator. Essentially, the driver's feeling the tires go off in their hands. And when it comes to fuel, really all you get is a fuel pressure warning when you have to switch over to your reserve tank. There's no full fuel gauge showing the tank draining. So this is something that the driver works with their crew chief to strategize around, and they make choices as the race goes on. Now, We are, after all, making a simulated experience. It is something I think we can do a better job of informing the player about. But we need to be careful about how much of this information we produce on screen versus the experience we're trying to deliver. So we want to strike a good balance between authenticity and information for the player in the future.
I like the answer, but we don't have a crew chief to work with. That's the problem. Will custom setups be added to the game? I'm curious about this one. Let's see what do we get here.
Yeah, this is a great question. It's something that we wanted to focus on as we move towards the next gen cars. We see it's a really good place to introduce the feature because these cars have loads of new adjustments and settings compared to the cars that ran in 2021. So it's something we'll be looking to do as we move into the next game.
So no, not in 21. Is it possible to add an option to turn off motion blur? Please.
Yeah, a few people have been asking about this. It's actually really complicated. So we could add a toggle for motion blur, but the effect that is actually seen in game is a combination of a number of factors. Motion blur is included in that, but there's other post-process effects at play. There's anti-aliasing, and there's a frame rendering and updating algorithm. So all of these things kind of combine together to give the effect that you're seeing. So adding that toggle, which is feasible, may not actually alleviate your concern. So what we're going to look at is how we can perhaps combine all of these settings together. But it's something that we'd only be able to do in the future.
He's got a lot of plants in his room. Will you be adding support for more wheel shifters, pedals? That's obvious. You already know that's going to be a yes.
Yeah, so we're working on adding support for more wheel manufacturers where we can on NASCAR 21. When it comes to adding things like H-pattern shifters to the game, this is something that we're looking to do in the future. And we're also hoping to add more adjustments to the wheel settings so that you'll be able to customize your experience more. We know that this is something that's really important for wheel users, and it definitely is going to come into play more as the game gets more competitive, because people will want to be able to set their wheels up so that they can get the best performance out of them.
Can you add custom schemes to career mode? Well, you need a custom team they need to be able to add first with that, so let's see.
So this is a good question. In the career and ignition, you're essentially signing a contract and running for an existing Cup Series team. So you're always going to be jumping into their car with their existing paint scheme and their sponsors. So we felt it didn't really make sense for you to have your custom scheme in there, essentially allowing you to run whatever sponsors you like or whatever colorways you're running.
I agree with that answer. Custom names or gamer tags to the car schemes, those need to be there.
Yeah, when it comes to custom schemes online, this is absolutely something that we want players to be able to do. But we have to make sure that there are the necessary reporting mechanisms in place so that players are able to report schemes that they find offensive or they don't want to see on their own system. And that's extremely complex. So it's something that we're working on.
Really good points there.
But I can't promise that we're going to see it for NASCAR 21. With regards to getting your name on the car, that's something that we're investigating for the future as well. NASCAR have shared the new windshield banner designs for 2022. And we see there as being good opportunity for the player to get their name on the car through that system.
Custom schemes online is very touchy, very hard to do, just because of how risky it can be. Celebrations and burnouts should feature NASCAR
Yeah, we
games.
get this question a lot. It's definitely not going to happen in Ignition, but I'd love players to be able to celebrate their victory in their own way. We're currently looking into ways in which we can do this, but I think, obviously allowing the player to celebrate with a burnout, maybe smoking the tires against the catch fence or going and running across the grass and tearing up the beautiful track logo. Are various options there. There's also potential for allowing the player to choose different victory animations. So when they get out of the car in victory lane, they're punching the air or they're holding their steering wheel up like Joey Logano. So there's loads of stuff we could do here, and we're currently investigating ways that we can make that happen.
Will you bring back challenges to future NASCAR games? I feel like they will.
This is an interesting question. Challenges are something that we'd love to bring back into future games, but I'd really like to make challenges that reference events that happen in the real world during the season, rather than just creating a list of scenarios that you kind of play through.
I like that idea.
My dream would be to create challenges, that are based on scenarios that happened in the race that weekend and bring them into the game using a live service. So there's lots of ways that we can do this, and I think it's something that I'm super interested in doing in the future, but currently it's something that we'll be doing in future games.
Will split screen multiplayer be added to the game? Not this
So a
game,
few
no
people
way.
have asked about this. We recognize that split screen is a great way to play together. I personally love playing video games with my kids, so I get how cool it is. But right now, we don't have any plans to support split screen. It's something that I'd love to try and do, but I think that's going to happen in the future.
They haven't found my question yet. Do you plan to improve car stability? They spin way too easily, especially after contact. No, I think the car stability is
Yeah, it's a
fine.
great question. I think with all of the assists off, the car is pretty challenging to drive.
It should
This
be.
is due to the more authentic physics and tire model that we're using for ignition. I do agree that we could do a better job of giving players better feedback, so when they're losing control, they get the information they need to help them react better.
I also
I think
agree
for
with that.
now, our focus is turning towards the next gen car, and we'll be looking to improve the car stability as we work on the new physics for that vehicle. But for now, I think if you're struggling, I'd like to recommend that you turn some of the assists on. We worked really hard to get those assists, helping players keep control of the car, and I'd encourage you to do that.
Can you update the game to allow player control in the pit lane?
Yeah, we've had a few people ask about this, and it's something we're going to look to do in the future. In order to make it happen, we really need to get more rules and penalties into the game so that we can police player behavior as they drive manually through the pit lane. So we're going to get those rules and penalties in place first, and then we'll look to introduce manual pit stops.
There you have it. I like hearing that. Can you add a feature where we can drive from the garage to the track for rolling starts? MP, I don't know who that is, but he has a lot of questions.
Personally, I think it's something we'd like to improve on. As I agree, it would be really, really cool to get pushed out of the garage and then drive through the infield and out onto the track. It's not something we can currently add to Ignition, but I do think we can improve the immersion of heading out onto the track as we work on future games. You know, perhaps joining a practice session from the blend line, or starting qualifying from the end of pit road and actually heading out onto the track, making sure your tires are at an optimum point when you hit the start line, so that you can maximize your qualifying performance.
Do you have plans to improve the AI so they use more of their track and avoid wrecks? Or you already know they
We
do.
get loads of questions about our AI, and we're always looking to improve them. I think to get the AI running competitively in Ignition, we had to get them running really, really aggressively. And that often leads to them struggling to avoid wrecks. So we have made a bunch of improvements here, and we're trying to get them using more of the track, looking out for wrecks ahead, while also maintaining that aggression that keeps them competitive. It's a really fine-tuning, balancing act that we're running here, but we're always looking to improve the AI behaviors.
Okay. Is there a fixed plan to prevent cars from starting sessions with damage?
Yeah, great question. We've actually already got a fix in for this that will be coming in the next update, so it should be something you'll see very soon.
Hey, why does the car seem to pull to the left and not feel like it drives in a straight line? Well, it's a stock car.
Great question. So again, this is down to the authentic car setups that we're
Exactly.
using on the vehicles.
They do that in real life.
At many tracks in the NASCAR calendar, the cars are running a staggered setup due to their tires having different rollouts or circumferences on the right side of the car compared to the left. So that essentially allows the car to more easily turn left, but it does also mean that the car tends to want to steer left even when you're driving down the straights. So in the real world, the drivers get to offset their steering wheel to make that more comfortable for them as they're running down the straights. That's a setting we don't currently have in the game, and I think it's a setting that we should be looking to introduce in the future.
Hopefully, yeah. Online races tend to start with a series of wrecks as players gain control of their cars. Do they have plans to fix this?
So we know a lot of players have been finding this really frustrating, and we've actually got a fix in place for this that's coming in the next update. So you should
thank
have this
God.
fixed very soon.
Thank God. Do you have plans to reduce the minimum number of players from 6 to 2 in a private party? 6
So
is
we're
a
really
high
excited to be
number, way
introducing
too
the
high.
Private parties feature in the next update. Right now, we're introducing it with these numbers because they felt best for us in testing. But we'll be definitely watching how the feature is being used by the community and adjusting them if required.
Are there plans to add additional online multiplayer features such as custom race lengths, track selections, and point/stats that would be
We hear
helping
the
in league
community loud
racing?
and
That was
clear
from
on this,
Joey
and
Stone.
It's something we're keen to support in the future. For me, I think the first step here is to give players more control over the sessions that are being created. That way, as a community, you'll be able to run races according to your own rules. And then I think the logical next step from there will be some kind of league support that will allow admins to run leagues, keep track of the results and the stats, and actually aggregate all of those things together and essentially have a place where their leagues can be controlled from.
What are the release dates for patch 1.40 and the playoff DLC pack? I think we're
Thanks
getting
for
the patch
question,
very
Kyle.
soon, right?
The
hello,
next
sir.
patch update 1.4.0.0 actually goes live tomorrow, Tuesday, January 25th, with the playoff DLC pack and the next legendary driver, Bobby Labonte, scheduled to go live on Thursday, January 27th.
Can we look forward to the Xfinity and Truck Series in future NASCAR
Yeah, this
games?
is a question we get a lot, Jake, from both the community on social media and at the track in person. Our ultimate goal for NASCAR 22 is to ensure that the NASCAR Cup Series next gen car is as accurate as possible in the game. We will look to incorporate the NASCAR Xfinity and NASCAR Truck Series into the console game in subsequent years, as we allow our development team to build those vehicles as accurate.
So it sounds like
as
next
possible.
year's a no-go, or this year.
We know the
NASCAR
Xfinity
22
series and the Truck Series is essential to the sport of NASCAR and is a huge fan favorite. So it is something that we are looking to incorporate. In previous NASCAR video game titles that did include the Xfinity series and the Truck Series, when you got down to it, those vehicles drove very, very similar or the same. We want to make sure that these vehicles are accurate to life, and an Xfinity Series car drives like an Xfinity Series car. A Truck Series vehicle drives like a Truck Series vehicle, and it's not just all the same thing that you're playing as. So we want to make sure that we get that right and get that accurate. And first up on that is the next the Cup Series next gen car.
How closely do you work with the drivers and teams to get data or feedback?
Yeah, this is a really good question, Brian. We work very closely with not only NASCAR but the teams and the drivers when it comes to building our NASCAR video game. And I think our renewed partnership with Live Fast Motorsports that was recently announced is a perfect example of that commitment. Through that partnership, we'll have access to real-time data from NASCAR Cup Series events, access to drivers and key team personnel, as well as setups and lessons learned throughout the entire course of the season. BJ McLeod and Matt Tift are not only Cup Series regulars and NASCAR veterans, but they're also avid video game players and have a passion for NASCAR video gaming. And it's something that we all share and we all want to succeed. So, I think that partnership highlights this commitment a whole lot. But also in addition, as we've been working on the next gen car, we've worked directly with NASCAR and team representatives and manufacturer representatives to access the latest CAD data and photo references for the next gen car. We have had a presence at multiple next gen tests, and just to see the entire industry work together on this and for us to be a part of that has been very encouraging, and I think it'll come across in the products that come out.
Will you continue to release PS4 and Xbox One versions of future NASCAR games?
That's a good question, especially with the
right?
jump in next-gen consoles and the development there. We at Motorsport Games plan to release future NASCAR games for the PS4 and the Xbox One consoles, and expect to continue to do so as long as Sony and Microsoft continue to support those platforms. We will release on those as well.
But that kind of adds limitation, doesn't it, to the future games? Will you be adding cross-platform in future titles?
Cross-platform play is something that we continue to look at for future NASCAR games. It's something that we're continuing to investigate. But as of right now, there are no plans to implement that for NASCAR 21 Ignition.
Well, we need it in the future. How long will you support and add content and features to Ignition?
We continue to improve this gaming experience, at least for the first half of this year. And based on our promise that we're going to be more transparent with what we have going on here, you could foresee us letting you know what is really coming and when it's coming and so on. So don't hesitate to continue to send us comments on NASCAR 21 Ignition, because we continue to listen and we continue to improve this at least for the first half of this year.
So June area will be done. Has the release of Ignition and the need for multiplayer patches impacted? That was kind of my question, but they didn't take mine directly. That's unfortunate. I've been snubbed.
This type of innovative product, but the main key takeaway and our goals are to continue to strive to be authentic representation of the sport, and be a joyful experience. One takeaway is that we created some frustrations to some of you with this release. That is something that we will work extremely hard to not repeat again. So our goals are on top of the list are really to be authentic, joyful, and fun. So not only that we could appeal to the vast majority of the hardcore fans, but also allow that 3-year-old to pick up that controller and really have a joyful experience as they enter the NASCAR digital world.
What are Motorsport Games goals for future NASCAR games? What have been your key learnings from
Our
Ignition?
main goal continues to be to create a really authentic NASCAR gaming experience that wouldn't just be endorsed by the hardcore fans or the majority of it, but also by the 3-year-old that looks to pick up the controller and really have a nice, joyful experience. So that continues to be our goal, to be authentic, joyful, and really fun. But our key takeaways is that we really need to polish our product more for the product release and make sure that we don't miss some of those really core components of the sport, like stages, again, before releasing a game.
Then the
So
next
from those
update,
key
stages.
learnings and staying committed to creating a joyful experience, you could assure that we could continue to improve year in and year out.
This is really
I'd like
long.
to thank you
Oh,
again for your time.
there it is.
To not just submitting the questions and giving us an opportunity to answer, but also sitting through this video. We really hope that this town hall format demonstrates our willingness to be transparent and our desire to stay in constant communication with you, to show you that the passionate group of individuals that are behind the scenes here, constantly working on improving the product, really care. So we hope that this is an example of one of many. We'd like to set the precedent of doing this on a certain type of schedule to assure you that we hear you and that we are working on constant improvement of that experience, so we could be that most joyful NASCAR gaming experience that anybody has ever tried. Thank you again for your time.
Well, there you have it, everybody. They didn't bother answering my question, unfortunately. That's pretty cool. I was going to run it back, but that was way longer than I was hoping and thought it was going to be. So, yeah, not really. We're not going to run it back here, but I'll just let it play silently. The only thing that really stood out to me, one of the things was when they were talking about we don't have fuel or tire wear like indicators on the screen, and it was because we're aiming for more of a authentic experience, a more simulated experience where, in real life you have to work with your crew chief to find out that info pretty much. But there's two issues where we don't have a crew chief to work with, and second, you heard towards the end with Dimitri talking that they want to be able to have a 3-year-old just come in and play NASCAR 21 Ignition. So that leans towards a casual fan base. So they're contradicting their own, they're going against their own point there with the whole feel and the tire wear, because some 3-year-old kid's not going to know what the heck's going on when he comes in there for the casual experience. So they got to choose a side. I don't know which side they want to choose. They seem to be trying to balance it. But it sounds like a lot of issues as well a lot of drawbacks stem from trying to make the game playable on old generation consoles of PS4, Xbox One, etc., which is interesting to hear. But I don't know. I don't know what to think. Has it made me excited for the future? No. Has it made me even more, down about the current situation? No, it hasn't really changed my opinion at all. It was nice to have some answers or some questions answered. I hope they continue to do this, but hopefully they kind of spread it out with the kind of diversity of the questions they're answering and stuff. But nonetheless, yeah, I mean, it was good to hear from the 3 people we heard from there, especially Dimitri. But it would have been nice if they would have answered my question. What the heck, guys? Come on. But yeah, that does it for me, guys. It was interesting. It's a cool concept they're going with. I hope they keep going with it, because they're at least answering the community questions. So some of the questions, though, that they did answer were really unrealistic questions. Like, I don't even remember what some of them were, but let's see if I can go through. Motion blur, like, that's a good question. Like, we need motion blur, obviously, right? But wheel support, it's a good question. Wheel support, very limited in this game, which is crazy. They mentioned the multiplayer custom schemes. It's really hard to do that in a game like NASCAR 21 Ignition, because you think about it, it's like people can throw something really bad on their car and have it in the game and show it to everybody. So you got to be really careful. That's why they've had such a tough time previously with throwing custom cars in online, because it's a really sketchy thing to do. iRacing doesn't seem to have a care in the world. When I'm racing on there, I see some schemes I would really not like to see, political schemes to offensive schemes, etc. And you don't want to have that in your NASCAR 21 product, right? So I think that's going to be something that's really tough. There's got to be, if they're going to do it, there needs to be some really heavy limitations to it. But other than that, let me know what you thought of the Q&A and what questions you would have liked to see answered versus to the ones that were answered. But that does it for me. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.